Well, hello everybody, and thank you all so much for tuning in to my past videos. Um, the more I sat and thought about this whole process, the more I really thought of a few more things that I can show you guys as we go through. Um, and one of the things I really want to show you while we have some time here is I want to show you about magic sheets. Magic sheets are a tool we use in lighting design, primarily during the queuing process. I've seen fellow designers use them during the focus process, but typically they're used during queuing, and they're used to help the designer call out channels faster as we go through the queuing process. And what a magic sheet is it's all of your channels that you have plotted out, and they are plotted onto a sheet of paper like the one on my screen. See where they are. Um, this type of magic sheet on my screen is typically used by a designer. It's made by designers. I'm one by production of the Wrath at soon for Donia. But there are also magic sheets that you can make on a console. And I'll be showing you a couple ones that I made and telling you about the different circumstances in which I used them. So we'll start here with my Grapes of Wrath one. A fairly simple layout. I have the set that was used in the show, that is the background, and then I have all of my focus areas throughout the each little square on the set, and then in each square I also have underneath or next to each focus area the channel of what light is focused to that area. So in my front light, of course, I have one channel 1A, two is at B, and so on and so forth. Same with cool, same through to the heights and backlight. Um, and then bottom hand corner, what I typically do and what I've seen people do and what I've kind of stolen from people because I like this idea too, is I have my group listings and then I have any other specials that might need to be listed. So I had back wall textures, I had transitional lighting, I had some specials for some signs that were used throughout the show. I have my movers listed here. I have any practicals I might have used. I even have my spotlight panel, and I have my house and works. Um, Times I have seen it done where the specials uh, get their own square to set in it, so it can be seen a little bit easier where things are going. I've just gotten in the habit of doing it this way. Like I've mentioned in so many of my videos, it's all about personal preference and whatever you think is going to make you easier or faster as a designer. This format of Magic Sheet has helped me greatly throughout my show so far, when I've actually been able to have a programmer. And a programmer, of course, is somebody who would sit at the board and be punching in the numbers into the console as we go through our queuing process. Uh, Oftentimes, the role of the programmer at Fredonia would be taken by a board op, just so we could speed things along. Throughout this video, I'm going to show you a couple more magic sheets, um, and again, just my personal preference and what I've used them, just so you can see how these things are done. And again, just a little more of an idea of what I do in my world. So the next one I'm going to show you is from a production I just did recently out at Fredonia High School, which was the production of Carousel. So to walk you through this magic sheet a little bit, we have my these are all my systems here in this area. I have a system for my front light. I have my stage right high sides and my stage left high sides. I have my backlight, and then I have my cyc lights, and then I have my ground row. Um, with this setup that I was working with, it was all LEDs. And so when I have stage right and stage left, that's why I did that, because There's really no other way to differentiate those two. It's just you have stage right and then you have stage left. Orchestra lights, we had a pit orchestra that would sit in front of the stage itself. So every now and then they would be lit up with those orchestra lights. Over here we have booms. I had a couple of booms on the stage right side of the stage. And then we have my ground row, which were conventional lights. Typically, in this auditorium, they actually have a full set of LED cyc lights. However, with the way the stage was set up with the scenic design, we did not have enough room to use the second set of cyc lights that are typically used for a ground row. So we used a three-color conventional strip light, which actually ended up working pretty well as it was. So those are my systems. Here I have a couple of +% and -% buttons. The board I was using at the high school was an Ion Classic, and it does not have two of my favorite buttons, which is the +% and -%. Um, so unfortunately, not unfortunately, what I did was I went ahead and I added those to the magic sheet themselves, and I can show you how to do that. It's very easy. Down here, I have my spotlights. I had 3 spotlights that would be used throughout the show. I also have a button for my curtain warmers. Um, all of these buttons here, these buttons that I'm pointing at right now that I'm mousing over, are all groups. So if I were to click on group, the front light button, you can see down here it says group 1. So now I have control of all of my lights that are in group 1, which are all my front lights, and then so on and so forth. Um, these are the individual channels up here. Same thing with the spotlights, are the individual channels of the actual spots. Um, this this button here is actually a button. It controls all 3 spots at the same time. And then I have my curtain warmers, which is again a group for my curtain warmers. Actually, it's a channel, excuse me. I haven't used that in a while. So down here, I have my movers. For this show, I used 4 Chevet Maverick MK2s. The spots are the profiles. They were a great light to have during the show. Ended up having a lot of fun using them. And again, here I have the group that the movers are, and then I have individual control over each of the movers if I should want to do that. Here I have my practical section. These were, again, practicals that were installed throughout the show. I have the Starkeeper, which was a set of 600-foot string lights that were strung in the auditorium above the audience for our Starkeeper scene. Um, then I have the carousel canopy, which was a set of string lights set around that canopy itself on the carousel to flash when that came in. And then I have my set of texture backlights, which I used throughout the ballet sequence. Um, Over here in this section, I have a lot of different buttons that trigger a lot of different macros. So to go through each one fairly quickly, I have backstage lights, which is a macro that powered on the LED backlight for backstage. Just came out in a backstage blue. I have the work light macro, which was a preset for when you turned on the board. Um, they could click this and all of the lights would come on so that people could see what was going on stage. Shutdown prep is a macro that unparks everything and then goes to queue out. Select active, I believe, was just a board button. That is another button that is not on the Ion Classic. It's another one of my favorites um, when it comes to programming. So I just put that in there. For Starkeeper, I made this a macro to send my movers into a certain preset. In-house stars, this was a macro to start an effect for the string lights that were in the house. Ballet, it was again triggering a preset. Startup macro, this is actually one of my favorites, and I really wish I had time to video it. But because of all the COVID-19 craziness, I was not able to. Startup macro, what it does is it actually fires a queue list to go through a channel check. And what it does is it goes through each system of light, goes to the front light, goes to the high sides, goes to the back light, and it changes the colors to make sure everything is working properly. And then it goes to the movers. It changes the gobos throughout the movers. It goes through every parameter of the movers it has. So it's a really cool automated queue sequence. So what you would do is you would come in first thing, you would hit startup macro, and it would fire this queue list to trigger everything automatically that it goes through. Um, when that was done, you would hit show ready, which is the button right next to it, which is also a macro, and that gets us back into the queue list, right into the preset for the show itself. Um, this carousel button here actually starts the carousel effect. The lights flash on and off on the carousel canopy. C stop effect is for the carousel to stop the effect. This macro goes through and it selects the channels that are being affected and it stops them. S stop effect is the same thing. It's a star keeper stop effect. It goes through and it stops the effect that's being used. Going dark, if I ever need to use it, it's just a blackout button. I also have a lock macro to lock out the board should I ever need to do it. Like if I'm taking notes during a rehearsal and I don't want to hit anything accidentally, I can go ahead and lock out the board, and now I can't do anything on this. I can't select anything. I can't do anything uh, at all. And then to unlock it, unfortunately, there is no way to unlock it from a macro that I know of. If anybody watching this knows a way, please tell me. I don't think there's any way to do it except for actually doing it on the keyboard. And that's fine. It's mainly it's happened so many times that we have accidentally hit something on the board during a rehearsal or during a work day that we needed to have that on there. And everybody's favorite function on MA, which is one of my favorite functions here, is to have a clock going. Anybody watching this that was in our lighting technologies 2 class, you know the running joke and a clock. So I always put a clock on my magic sheets for the bit and also just to really keep track of time because oftentimes during work days I can really lose track of time very easily. Um, Down here, probably one of my favorite buttons and macros on the whole magic sheet is Emperor Palpatine saying execute Order 66. And if you're not a Star Wars fan, I do apologize. I'm not going to go through and explain exactly what this is, what that means, but this macro does shut down the board. So this magic sheet was from a production I was an associate lighting designer on, where I was acting as the programmer as well, and at times the designer was actually had this magic sheet on his screen made so that both of us could really use this in an ear way. And we also added in a feature that we could stir out as well. Production itself was Mr. Popper's Penguins at the Theater of Youth in Allendale, uh, in New York. If I got it wrong, please excuse me. Um, they are a lovely theater company. I worked with them quite a bit past 2 years with my lighting designer professor out at SUNY Fredonia. We always had a lot of fun when we did these shows. So let me walk you through this magic sheet a little bit. You'll notice it looks very similar to the one I made on paper. It's it's a bit of the paper magic sheet I just showed you from Carousel. And this type of shapes when you are going to be When you have a type of show that might need us down on certain scenes quite a bit, in this way, what you as them can do or what the designer can do, they so choose, is you can just click on each of these channels. Each of these right in your our individual channels. And you can see if I click on them right now, it's selecting channels 1 through 6. Thing we can do is we can also click and drag to be able to select all of those as well. The other fun feature about this one was that these up here are actually buttons, or they should have been buttons, excuse me. Something we used to do, and that I started doing on my carousel magic sheet, was that the labels actually ended up being buttons for that group, so that if you clicked front light, you had all of your front light groupings, and so on and so forth. So here we had one system of front light. We had a warm high side, then we had a cool high side, then we had our three colors of backlight, and then we had our transitional textures, which shine on the stage for transitions. And then we have some groupings down here. We have a footlights grouping. We have groupings for a drop that came in, downstage legs that came in. This set was absolutely gorgeous that we got to light. Had all sorts of vaudevillian throwback designs. It was absolutely phenomenal to work with. Um, we had footlights that we were able to use right down here that we ended up wiring and using throughout the show. We put a chase effect in them. It ended up being so much fun to work on. Um, and this magic sheet also features something I mentioned earlier, with a picture of the set with each of the specials that are listed here. And this is something that is very similar to what I did with the Emperor Palpatine picture in my carousel set, where this picture of the set was imported, then I put it in the magic sheet, and then we were able to put these channel buttons all throughout the set here. So again, these are the actual placements of these specials on the set. This is something that my lighting designer at the time liked to do a lot, and I really do understand why he liked to do that. It's something I mentioned earlier, having a set uh, in your magic sheet, a picture of the set in your magic sheet where all the specials go, just so you know exactly what special you're looking for and exactly what that special does. Um, Over here on the far right, we have a few buttons that the stage manager would use throughout the process. Once we left as the lighting design team, the lighting designer in this space, excuse me, the stage manager in this space also acted as the board op. And so what we liked to do for the stage manager was we like to leave them with a few buttons so they can go through things. This button right here started a channel check for the stage manager to go through and make sure all of the channels were working. We even have a go button and a back button for the playback sequence. We have a save and shutdown macro. Then we have a house button to bring the house lights up to full. Um, and we have a few submasters here as well. These submasters act just like submasters would on an actual console. At this time, we just recently got a PC console, a Gadget 2 for the theater to be rented from my line designer at the time. And with that, we didn't have a fader wing. So what we did was we decided to put the faders on the screen itself, on the magic sheet, so we can just access them very easily. And when you're using a touch screen like what we had at the theater, it's just so much easier to be able to use with that. So this again was a magic sheet I used for Mr. Popper's Penguins. At the time, I was the associate lighting designer, and I also acted as the board op and the programmer. So I was in charge of making this magic sheet so my designer could use it, so we could get faster when we were queuing this show through. I think it really helped us get a lot faster in general, and it's something I will probably start using more, this kind of setup. But I also, it all depends on the show, because what I did for Carousel was I used the console magic sheet in addition to my paper magic sheet that I did make for it. So it's all about personal preference. It's all about what you have to do, because for a few shows I've been doing as of late, I've had to be my own programmer as the designer. So I've gotten so used to being able to just, have everything right in front of me. I use both. Like I just mentioned, when I did for Carousel, I use the console magic sheet, so I can do a lot more, grab and go things. And then I have my paper magic sheet sitting right next to me, so I can use that as well as needed. Um, again, I'll say it again. I've said it a million times. It's all about personal preference, and it's all about learning, and learning what's going to make you faster, and learning what's going to make you a better programmer, and honestly, a better designer. Because honestly, the more you can focus on what's happening on stage, the better everything is going to look in general. So I want to thank everybody for tuning into this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. Um, I'm not sure when my next video is going to come out. I'm not sure what the content is going to be of that next video, but I really do hope you guys have enjoyed this journey so far, and I hope you continue to tune in to the different things I'll be doing. As I mentioned in my first video, I do hope to be doing some sort of concert setup with my pre-visualization programs and with my Grand MA system. So I really hope everything is going to be able to work out. So again, I really hope you enjoyed this, and have a great night, everybody. Bye.